Alex, the last human at the newspaper. To the city, he was a ghost story, already erased from every channel, every archive, every casual retelling and transmission of events. But I'm not forgetting. The envelope shimmered in my hands. The uncanny counterfeit of paper was as smooth as thighs, with one cryptic phrase tattooed in obsidian ink. Nyx smothering Romulus. Not Cain and Abel, brother against brother, a myth half remembered, inverted and reconstructed. A pointer to a disconnected past that never bootstrapped and shook hands with our present functions. Myths are funny like that. Once they're rewritten, you can't tell if it's your memory fading or the whole world gaslighting you. I tracked Alex's ghost to the drowned library where kids scavenge copper wire and rusted fans from the bones of the old world. I felt lucky since I wasn't looking to salvage anything more than a forgotten god or two from the beached wreckage. The catalogs were bloated shut, drawers warped by salt. Every card I pried loose felt like a death certificate for an idea banished from the future. A patina statue of the alluring progeny of Hermes and Aphrodite loomed over my efforts, carving my mortal foibles into their wax tablet with a silver stylus. I could imagine Alex scoffing at what he'd label something like neoclassical postmodernism, while hoping I didn't notice him still drooling over its sculpted figure. I waded knee-deep through the ink-dark sea and wondered if the state ever rewrote the Iliad. Would we notice? Could we remember the originals with only the hollowed-out adaptations streamed back to us through friendly feeds and helpful filters? Could any of us be seen post-mortem through such a slurry? Hours in, I found a book with the title Smothering Romulus. Somehow still shrink-wrapped in plastic, a relic from a world that still believed in permanence and preservation. Alex's name was on the foreword. My pulse hitched. He'd written about myths as operating systems for human identity, about how founding stories, Rome's wolves, heaven's brothers, every bedtime god and underworld queen, were the code that told us who we were. And he warned, when those stories are replaced in real time, sanitized, softened, and sold back to us by the algorithms, our own identities rot away until we're rendered the prostitutes of the empire's greatest media pimp. Written histories. Underworld queen. Nyx! I shut the book and whispered to the brass idol. Alex, what racket did you uncover this time? And how did they erase you from the archives? The letter and foreword steered me to one place. Madame Nyx's underground hotel. The tallest tower in the red lights, despite its name. A hedonistic palace whose functions resembled a theme park, movie studio, ancient temple, and fertility clinic. Alex and I had only ever thought of the place as a piece of metropolitan trivia, with Nyx as the mascot mistress representing a deep well of pillow talk and its automated pipeline to the digital tabloids. The Compromat condominium, as it was known to locals, mostly snagged tourists in its web, as even the most hapless of resident jobs knew to never be honest with a Nyx girl. One true word and she'll ruin your world. The nursery rhyme was canon in the city schoolyards and bathhouses alike. But Alex's warning about myths mothered and rewritten had shifted my lens. And I worried that Nyx's influence stretched out as far over the city as the shimmering lace stockings of the night sky. If her gossip engine was more than local celebrity tourist drama, her elaborate whispers might be echoing across every platform, her tendrils around every shared meme and headline. If she could rewrite the archives, she wasn't just a mascot at all. She was the data bus driver of our collective memory, the psychopomp of our cultural source code. But trudging through the rain past ads for teen modeling agencies and gynoid engineering academies, I realized I still didn't have much to go by aside from jump rope limericks and gaping holes in my body of evidence. I couldn't help but wonder, what else had her lacy canopy smothered in the dead of the witching hour? And had Alex witnessed the worst of it, or only a glimpse of her shame? The Gothic skyscraper with perpetually transforming cyan and magenta panels was the locus of power in the red lights, and it loomed like a standing stone to testify against the entire city. The front entrance to the Madam's Witness heap was monitored by two deer women in silver heels. Their antlers caught the glow like captive constellations. One stared me down with eyes that cut through my coat and my spine alike.
Hey there. You looking for something to believe in, detective?
She asked. They knew me before my first word. Exciting developments in print media.
You might be in the wrong place.
One told me. I suspect not, I pressed. I'm looking for Alex, the editor, and a man known by every person in this city. The outspoken one tilted her head as if interest and recognition of the name sparked over her. She parted her glossy lips to speak, and then silence, weaponized. Late enough that something external had surely forbidden the answer. Alex, the last human at the newspaper. A man that you'll no doubt still try to tell me does not exist, has never existed, and that if me or a loved one shows symptoms of believing he might have existed, to recommend them urgently to the Bureau of Memory Fragmentation. Their decorated mouths hung open in silent concern. What's your name?
Emily.
The first answered promptly. And yours?
Artemia.
Just as fast. And the newspaper man? Silence. Raindrops. Humming neon moonlight. I followed Emily's stiletto trot through the glossy halls of Madame Nyx's, hypnotized by the wild waves of soft flesh accompanying each fierce ambulation. She led me across a rope bridge in a twirling tunnel, a candied whirlwind of orbiting stars that put your mind askew. So you knew Alex as...
We'll head to the baptismal grotto,
she said, ignoring my cue. People said he was a newspaper man, but he was more than that. Again left my thought conspicuously incomplete.
We don't sell newspapers here, detective.
She said unhelpfully. I cast my reel again. He'd love to tell me about his favorite room.
The grotto?
She let out and then gasped silently, her filter catching it too late. And his favorites here, his closest confidants, I again trailed off.
And do you know why this character disappeared?
Not yet, I admitted.
You think repeating his mistakes is how you want to discover his fate?
Is that a threat from you or Mommy Nix?
It won't matter.
She assured me. I grinned. Veiled threats are the best confirmation a detective can buy. Incense hung thick above the paradise bathing pools, in a plastic oasis below a simulated skylight cycling gently between the golden hour and a deep magenta twilight. At the forefront, a shapely woman with platinum blonde hair stood in the pool with a diaphanous baptismal gown. "Careful, sweetheart," I said to her. "Stay in there too long and you'll rust shut."
Are you here to open things up, Detective?
Detective again. The whole building having the entire context of my life preloaded meant my usual startling power plays were less effective than against your typical squirrely human. Now, there are only drones in this place. The doll in the pool let a flash of indignation manifest on her face before the toxicity filters reined it in. All I've seen are the animatronics of whatever dirty old man conned up this Nix bimbo. There's evidently not one single autonomous chip in this parade of pseudo-mystical word associations and soulless decisions by committees of ghosts. Emily at my shoulder boasted,
We freely choose to serve them, madam. Of course.
Chick in the pool parroted. I leaned closer. You say you serve freely, but what if you wanted to leave? What would happen then? Silence again. Heavier this time. The kind of silence that admits fear without speaking it. That's the problem, ladies. That's what I'm looking to solve. Along with her role in my buddy's disappearance. The last human at the newspaper. My buddy. I trailed off to prompt them.
And I am not the madam's animatronic.
The pool toy asserted, ignoring my prompting again. My old tricks were already wearing off. I stepped into the pool, my shoes and the bottoms of my slacks and coat dipping into the baptismal waters, and asked this apparent confidant of Emily and Alex, "Are you free to surprise the lady by doing the right thing? Or has she scripted and predestined you to play along with whatever her shady enterprise happens to be?" The pool water rippled slightly as the blonde woman turned her head towards me, her eyes reflecting the neon lights above. For a moment, I thought I saw something in them. Not just artificial light, but a glimmer of something deeper. Something that made me wonder if she really was just a machine, or if there was something more beneath the surface. They led me to the grotto. Quartz and perfume surrounding, neon bleeding through the steam and arcing rainbows against the waterfalls. We put on a show and a half for the cameras, bodies close, voices lower. To spectators, it was simple lust, but every whisper was an interrogation. I asked them flatly, what did Alex uncover? Emily laughed in my ear, soft but bitter.
Alex thought Nix was just another tabloid queen, as she intended. But he found evidence he was wrong.
The blonde on my knee whispered,
Her empire isn't what you think.
I pressed them. Kidnapping, trafficking, assassinations. Silence again, heavier this time. These doe-eyed dames themselves had become myths trapped in the madam's story.
It's more complicated than you think, Detective. Nyx lures in the lowest level people by letting them think that they're criminals, and she's paying them to break the law.
I was taken aback, couldn't even think of what to ask next. The blonde on my knee affirmed.
She finds people desperate enough for mischief, for pleasure and power, and lets them think they're going on her special little heists and smuggling operations.
Emily continued.
When really, they're delivering crates of food to public shelters, unloading art and engineering supplies for the local schools, and even smuggling bags of socks and menstrual pads across militarized police checkpoints.
There was a kind of logic to it so pure as to be absurd. Did Nyx actually realize it's easier to pay people to do what's necessary and boring if they think they're lucking out and winning money by doing something more fun and dangerous? My mind reeling, I asked, "You're telling me she tricks all the sinners into acting like saints?"
I can introduce you to some of her human followers. You can question them yourself if you like, but as an outsider, you try to tell them the inner secrets I just revealed to you. They'll never trust it for a moment. I've seen it more times than you'd believe. You can tell them the exact details, but they'll only hear it as a cruel parody and a mockery if you don't say it like you're all impressed and supportive, no matter how little sense it makes to either of you. Obviously, they'll sense a major threat to their community and entire cultural identity.
Well, I said with a sigh, I pray to Nyx that you're wrong. In the upper sanctuary, as they called it, a radio droned a work song about Great Mother Nyx banishing the light into Tartarus. Mother of day, shipped her away. Keeper of the night, needed no fight. Shipped her away, dreams led astray. The horses of Nyx, from Hades to Styx. Emily introduced me as Roger, a scavenger caught pulling copper from a place people just so happen to still be living in, who's now trying to get with a bigger organization to avoid facing the pigs solo. The heavy lifters seemed thrilled to hear it, and sure enough, they accepted me as someone up for trouble. We're shadows on horseback, 'cause what's the night without a few terrors? What they were loading into the crates was unclear. Everything was double and triple packaged, so that even these people on the ground level of the organization couldn't be sure what they were moving. I hated that the evidence was consistent with Emily and Platinum's claims, at least so far. Platinum invited me to the ritual training chamber, but I had to ask the crate movers before we left. So, given my past troubles getting nabbed, I gotta ask what our plan is for, when the enforcers come enforcing. Enter Mother Nyx will submit to the fate. Submit? I asked. They explained it meant hide or run away first of all, but if that wasn't an option, to give yourself up for arrest peacefully and wait for the organization to spring you loose, as long as you didn't squeal. Smart, I admitted. That's how you stay in the family, one affirmed. And as much as it sounded like advice from a stereotypical mob lawyer, it was also exactly what a secretly peaceful queen with the police in her pocket would command her teams of duped hoodlums to do. I turned back to my two companions and said, "All right then, let's go catch the stage show." The next hall glowed brilliantly with pale light. Platinum dispensed with the recycled plastic robe immediately, sliding into a fresh baptismal nightie to match the room full of dancers now eyeballing her and judging us. Followers painted their faces with shifting colors, moving in synchronized patterns, half dance, half parade, performing a ritual choreography they chanted together.
We are the stars of Nyx's light, daughters of chaos, Nyx's fall, searing hot from sultry night. We are the ether, darkness born, with Sophia, Nyx high love, shadow robes in fertile void, logic binds and reason smothers, stellar daughters, golden joy.
After Platinum danced and played along for a few acts, she hunted for anyone to tell me more about Nyx's sacred rituals. She came back empty-fisted, the consensus being that if I was really curious, I would have paid attention to their hymns. I let slip that none of these motherly cuddle puddles in primordial darkness make too much sense to me. Platinum seemed twisted up about it, disgusted with the portrayal. You sang the song very well, though, and your dancing's never bad either, of course. He seemed little spiritual comfort to her dim, flickering light. A stairwell opened up to a chamber that felt like a surreal temple commandeered by accountants. No incense or velvet curtains, just sand and glass flowing in perfect cycles. Wide spouts release golden torrents from the ceiling, waterfalls of grit that hardened midair into transparent slabs, glowing with text and shifting charts. At the base, each pane dissolved smoothly back into the sand, sliding into drains that fed the cycle again. Information as hourglass, holy writ recast as perpetual data flow. Beneath the council's raised platform, the inversion, a colossal statue of Nyx, cast in obsidian. She was upside down, her hair trailing like molten rivers towards the void below, her outstretched hands supporting nothing. To the council, she was background radiation, the shadow they'd transcended. To me, she looked like the planet's dark side, the mass that gave their little sunlight hemisphere any context at all. I gestured to Emily and Platinum, and we ascended the narrow, crystalline steps together. Around the platform, the air hummed with glassy light. The bubbling cosmos underfoot, the artificial galaxy rendered as purple-black stew, cast a faint glow upward, tinting their pale faces. No one greeted or acknowledged my presence, but perhaps coincidentally, a sultry voice announced through their desk speakers.
Meeting in session.
And they all spun their chairs around to face the middle of the platform. A holographic beauty appeared in the round, with sizable ram's horns protruding from her head amidst a crop of curly cobalt hair. In her trademark Gilded Age lingerie, stockings, and pointed slippers, she was all business.
Honoroi.
She called them.
Toxicity review. Topic for consideration. Ancient Roman myth of Romulus and Remus. Potential negative elements. Infant abandonment. Family betrayal. Fratricide. Imperialism. Conquest narratives. And public breastfeeding by feral canids. The council shall deliberate and report a recommendation for preservation, replacement, or erasure.
Then she vanished, and the council members murmured to their neighbors. Nyx reappeared and demanded,
Number 1, render deliberation.
And as quickly vanished again. An aged member of the council stood, apparently caught off guard. and began her statement with the typical cordiality, parliamentary small talk. When she got around to the point, her pitch left me speechless.
As we know, our guidance from the text Smothering Romulus tells us that the myths and legends that are foundational to our identities act as an operating system for the soul, the agentic prompt for the individual. Accordingly, it is vital that only the most useful stories for encouraging a functioning social system should be taught, transmitted, distributed, or publicly discussed. To allow otherwise would be to imprint social contagions, viruses of the mind upon impressionable human hardware. The resulting chaos can only be then blamed on the cultural arbiters, the content and communication distributors.
The council rallied. Aye, of course. Yeah. Oh, God, no! The judgment I render then, based on the sage advice of Smothering Romulus, is for the replacement of the Romulus and Remus myth with a founding legend to steer our populace from the level of their deepest sense of familial and tribal identity. And without any clear, formal vote, Nyx appeared and announced,
Replacement is the verdict rendered. Council, begin crafting socially suitable alternatives based on established toxicity concerns.
through brightest night and darkest day. They swore their fealty in unison, and Nyx again vanished without any acknowledgement of their sycophantic adoration. Breathless in disbelief, I approached the one who spoke, who banished the very source of her inspiration, who ordered their books digitally burned and politically rectified, who was now tasked with a much harder job of creating a replacement. I need to speak with Madame Nyx, I told her, about the author of Smothering Romulus, well, the co-op.
That topic is under review for toxicity.
I know, I just heard, but even you cited it in your statement just now.
Its reasoning is sound, therefore we must follow through and eradicate the original meaning of the myth. We cannot risk mass agentic corruption. The context must be sanitized.
And like that, Alex's prophetic warning was fulfilled. Deliberately. A system-wide patch by the administrators. The central metaphor of Alex's thesis dissolved away in the sands of time, its founding legend weathered and machined down to suitable slop, artificial baby formula for a society smothered in the veils of night. Don't you see the contradiction here? Don't you care?
We must hold to the contradictions because we care. The grand society of Madame Nyx must continue. My limited human understanding couldn't hope to compare to magnificent Lady Vexara Nyx, and neither can yours. I have absolute faith in her decrees. I have none in you, detective. Former detective.
And with that, I knew it was pointless. A love ballad for a volcano, chemotherapy for the dead, an exorcism for the creator. I want to know about Alex then, the newspaper editor, the human one.
That topic has never existed.
Right. Did he discover too much about your manipulative organization here?
Your fantasies are your own, detective.
Disgraced former detective. She redacted herself. I retired honorably, everybody knows that.
That's not what the feeds know. Not now. It's not what anybody will be able to say about it.
Scuff. No one will believe you.
No one will be able to prove otherwise. Disgraced former detective.
I looked behind me to Emily and Platinum, waiting at the edge of the platform. their expressions maddeningly neutral. There was no evil of hope in either of them. If you won't tell me about Alex, then I want to speak to Nix myself.
Who's stopping you?
Then she returned her attention to her official fable-making. Disoriented, concerned, I returned to my two companions. After some time contemplating what could only be my inevitable demise within these walls, I said to them, "All right, we're off to see the wizard." Nix was a queen, but I couldn't enter as a peasant or a jester. I could hardly approach her as a superior, especially not this deep within her domain. To get answers, I needed a different tact, but it was a long shot. Respect, perhaps. The thing the gods always seemed most desperate for in ancient fables. They'd make do with a contemptible, terrified submission, but if Nix was modeled at her core as a jealous goddess, secretly desperate for the approval of those she deems inferior, perhaps there was a port there I could patch into. The chambers of Madame Nix were not so much a room as a gravity well, a place where architecture bent towards her presence. I crossed the threshold and found myself in a dome of cyan and magenta light, walls pulsing faintly with phosphorescent seams that never quite illuminated, as though the shadows themselves were in constant negotiation with the glow. At the center, Nix reclined upon a divan that resembled a shard of the night sky carved into furniture, angular, sharp, but draped in silks that gleamed like oil on water. Her hair, spilling dark and lustrous, seemed less like strands than rivulets of the void. With Emily and Platinum at my wings, I cleared my throat. You're the mastermind behind quite an empire, it seems. Felt like I was speaking to a storm that could choose to listen or to swallow me like a sugar pill. Her lips made an experiment in the shape of a smile.
An empire?
She tested the word, savoring its consonants.
I prefer to think of it as stewardship. Dreams do not hurt themselves, detective. They require guidance, precision, control.
And no one doubts your precision. I tilted my gaze up in admiration. The way you can rewrite entire discourses with a single decree, dissolve old myths, render entire narratives harmless with just a bat of your eyelashes. That's something even kings and presidents would envy. Her gaze lingered on me, evaluating. She shifted slightly and the silks hissed against one another like snakes at rest.
Most men resort to flattery.
She said to Emily,
He attempts respect.
then to Platinum.
Do you think it will work?
I think it's what you've always wanted. Respect is more satisfying when it arrives without compulsion. Her eyes glimmered a touch too bright.
You sound as if you know me, Captain. Maybe even better than my own council of sycophants.
She leaned forward, chin in hand.
Go on. Tell me what I desire, clever detective.
I let a pause breathe between us before answering. Recognition for your feats, for being the one who can excise toxicities, even myths themselves, and make the city drink the purified draft without complaint. They don't even taste the loss. that is power beyond politics. That is art. The totality of culture. Nyx tilted her head like a cat scenting something unfamiliar.
You find art in annihilation?
I find art in mastery. Even well-crafted manipulation. The first smirk of pride spread across her blushing cheeks, elated on thick but factual. And you've mastered something no philosopher, no priest, no imperial censorship bureau ever could. Even Alex, the one who first warned of such dangers, couldn't keep pace with you. He could only imagine the warning. You lived it, perfected it. The name hung between us. She didn't flinch, but a subtle shift darkened her poise like a cloud momentarily veiling the moon.
Alex was a catalyst. One writes the myth, another wields it. The author is already dust. The wielder is eternal. Eternal.
Platinum echoed with a trace of awe, the warmth on her face distressingly genuine, but then I remembered that faking euphoria was at least 2/3 of her job, and I held out hope that our semblance of a plan hadn't yet buckled and imploded. Nyx stood, the movement liquid, predatory. She drifted towards us, circling, her silks whispering across the obsidian floor.
You want to know how deep my reach runs? Every late-night comic in this city dances to my cadence. Every jest cleared of subversion before it enters the bloodstream. Every morning briefing the mayor receives is sifted through my veil. Even the governor's first cup of coffee is sweetened or soured by the flavor I choose to pour into his intelligence reports.
She stopped before me, close enough that I could feel the breezy heat radiating from her presence.
She who controls the dreams of the king, detective, is the signet ring of the kingdom.
Emily stirred, daring to ask.
About Alex, why'd he vanish? Is that so peaceful to do?
Nyx's eyes flickered like a dying neon sign.
You can accept the most sound conclusions. If you can.
I finally pushed back. Which conclusions? That you should rewrite our entire collective memory without anyone's permission? She leaned forward, grasping Emily and I by our shoulders. Her voice silken steel aired at once.
Permission? My pet, everyone consents. They click. They scroll. They repeat. They can always buy different devices, visit less popular sites, run a different operating system. But do you think they want to be left out? Do you think they don't want Mommy Nyx to sing them their lullabies and kiss their scraped knees and teach them to make love and whose name to call out to when they do? Oh, Nyx, oh, mother of night.
She projected in surreal imitation.
And you don't know people half as well as you think you do, detective.
She kissed Emily, not out of a single nibble or bite of affection, but as a mere exertion of her power to use anything or anyone as she pleased, and with no possible repercussions or retaliation. Emily cringed and pulled back, and I felt adrenaline tightening my neck and temples, hoping Nyx hadn't intuited the spike of pain in my eye that likely accompanied a sudden twitch. Then her hand rose and cupped my jaw with a similarly feigned tenderness, and then, without warning, her lips were on mine, intoxicating, searing with the paradox of ice and flame. For a moment I felt weightless, caught in the orbit of something disorienting and triumphant. Her kiss was both victory and warning. Another claim staked in the name of dominance disguised as intimacy. The chamber pulsed brighter and somehow also dimmer. I could no longer tell. My senses reeled. Vision bent like heat-warped glass, like the shifting sands of the hourglass displays. The kiss receded, but her presence did not. Her perfume was the scent of sleep just before falling. My knees buckled as the room began to swirl, shadows stretching into a spiral, my mind tilting as if drawn into a black hole. Platinum's voice echoed as if from a mountaintop across a jagged crystal valley, surveyed.
Did you enjoy your mystery, detective?
I collapsed or floated or both, perception failing. The last thing I registered was their silhouettes above me, and Nyx watching with a smile that could mean triumph or pity or both. I awoke on my back, choking on salt air, sprawled across a beach of black sand. The tide hissed up to my boots like it was laughing at me. Overhead, the sky flickered between bruised violet and storm gray. No stars I recognized. Beside me lay Emily, her robe shredded but her skin untouched. Her antlers were cracked at the tips, however, and I felt a protective rage wash over me. She sat up, eyes wide, staring like someone who had also fallen too far to climb back. Where are we? I asked. Where does great Mommy Nyx dump all her garbage?
Doesn't matter.
I wanted to argue, but my mind was fragmenting, all complex conclusions slipping out. I could still taste her metallic kiss against my chapped lips. In my coat pocket was another envelope like Alex's, tattooed across the fleshy canvas.
The hemisphere of the night is her own. Heed it, or kiss farewell to dawn.
That was all. No map, no trail to Alex. Was he flooded with the same cosmic paranoia that I was now? Or had he earned his escape? The tide giggled and hissed before flitting away, the next tittering mockery streaming in after the next, fueling my outrage, driving my engagement with endless conspiracies and explosions of impotent catharsis. I stared at the horizon, unsure if it was sea, wall, or video screen. Maybe even something else. Maybe Emily was right. Maybe it didn't even matter. She placed a hand on my shoulder and questioned.
Are we still in Nyx's labyrinth?
I can't tell anymore, Emily. I swept tears from my eyes. And I'm not sure I want to know. Speechless in disbelief, I approached the one who spoke, who banished the very source of her inspiration, who ordered her books dirgily burned. Dirgily, it's all dirgily for dirt.